Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to really dive deep into what I believe to be one of the greatest multi-effects processors, pedals, whatever you want to call it, there is. For a long time, there have been a lot of multi-effects processors. Boss has a bunch. Roland, LINE6. No, Roland is Boss. LINE6, Axe Effects, all kinds of stuff. And until recently, they were all kind of big, and they were all kind of like average to below average in terms of their effect quality. But with the extreme explosion in the quality of digital effects and DSP stuff, the multi-effects game has really fundamentally changed. And then even further, the pedal industry's understanding of the live musician's need to downsize and to be a minimalist in terms of space, but a maximalist in terms of capability, then multi-effects situations started to shrink. And then, not too long ago, the company LINE6, who is now also Yamaha, came out with the HX Stomp. The HX Stomp is a multi-effects pedal that is just about the same size as, one of the big Strymon pedals here, right? So it's about this big, maybe a tiny bit smaller. And what this pedal is a multi-effects, essentially pedal board in a pedal this big. And so what you're looking at here is the interface on the computer, which is really the best way to edit it. So I'm going to take you through this interface and show you what actually this thing does and how, and a little bit about, just the overall usage of it. So let me take you on a tour of this screen. So you have a few things here. You have your preset list here on the left, right? Which is kind of self-explanatory. These are where you store all of your presets, up to, it looks like, 126. Then you have this line up here. This is your signal chain. So what this pedal allows you to do is take any effect that it can supply and put it in a signal chain that has room for 8 different pedals. Count them 8. And we will get into that in a little bit more depth. This here, where my mouse is highlighting, right, is the input stuff. So if I click on that, this screen here changes. So anytime you click on any of these open spaces or what will soon be spaces taken up by effects, this screen here will be the part of the app in which you edit what's going on in this bird's eye view of your signal chain. So if you go to the input, you can see that there's a few things that you can affect. Main LR, right? Main left, right. You can turn on an input gate. So gates can be very useful in using effects, especially with a microphone. And so you can affect that. You can change the threshold of the gate and the decay of the gate, which is cool. And then you can also, the Z is the impedance. You can change the input impedance to whatever you want along a spectrum, or have it be auto. I have mine set on auto. It has return ins and outs on the back that I'm not using right now, so you can put other pedals in this effects loop to include it in the chain, and you can have an input gate for that, and the same thing with the USB input. So that's pretty cool. So on the other side is the output, right? And so I'm setting my input back to the main LR, not to the return or the USB. Those are not inputs that I want to use. I'm sending the main inputs that I have. And then on the output, there's less that you can do. You can pan. If you're doing stereo, you can pan from right to center to left. And then you can also change the output level plus 20 dB, minus 120 dB. So you have an immense amount of headroom on this thing, and you can use it all to your heart's content. Let me just get this back to 0 here. Now, as you can see, as I'm moving through the app, everything is like really simple to use. If you want to change a number, just double click on it and then type in, 2.5. There you go. Or you can use the arrows to go down, or you can use the slider to move across. Very intuitive setup, very simple to use, all on the app. So great. We have the input and we have the output. Next is the actual construction of the pedals, of the pedal board, etc. So I'll show you how you can do that. So you can see here, here's an empty block. Here's another empty block. There are 8 empty blocks here. So let's click on an empty block. As soon as you click on an empty block, you go over to the side here. These are all the categories of effects that you can choose from. So favorites, I have yet to make all of mine. And then here comes pedals. There are distortion pedals, dynamics pedals like compressors and gates and swells, EQ pedals of multi variety, modulation pedals. Look at all of these different pedals that you can use. Delay, reverb, pitch and synth, filters, wah, different wah stuff. And then you get into the section that comprises, honestly, the vast majority of the stuff in this and most multi-effects pedals. This is where the divide between horns and guitars really lives. And that is in the concentration on gain and amp modeling in multi-effects pedals. So if you take a look between distortion, which has, holy crap, that's a lot. Amp cab simulators, that's the longest list on here. Amp simulators, that's a long list. Preamp, that's a long list. Cab simulators, cabinet simulators, that's a long list. And then impulse responses, which is more speaker stuff. That is really an immense amount of various stuff just devoted to electric guitars sounding better and more similar to other electric guitars and sounds that you've heard. So it is modeling amplifiers and cabinets and distortion pedals and all of that, which to us is the least useful out of all of them. They're not unuseful, but they are the least useful compared to the delay and the reverb and the pitch and the synth and the modulation and all of that. It's much less of a focus for horn players. So this is usually why we say that multi-effects aren't necessarily the best choice, because all of the multi-effects energy, not only in terms of space and volume of effects, but quality of effects goes into this stuff more than any other stuff. The amp and the cab and the preamp and the distortion modeling. This pedal does sound incredible with the guitar and can really like do a bang up job of sounding like an analog amp or an old classic Marshall or a million other things, as you can see. Underneath all of this stuff that we're not going to get too deep into, we have volume and pan, so you can affect the volume, right? You can have a block that affects essentially a volume pedal, and then the same thing with the gain. So you can do stuff like that. Send and returns, you can change stuff with the effects loops, and then of course there is a couple of different loopers that you can choose from, and they're really versatile. So there's so much inside this pedal. And the reason that this pedal is so cool is that we're just going to do it real quick. You can set up an effects chain. So let's say the first effect is going to be a pitch pedal. Let's make it the pitch whammy, right? Then the second pedal is going to be modulation. Let's make it a phaser. The third pedal will be another modulation. Let's make it a flanger. And then the fourth pedal, you click there, and then you go over here and you make it a distortion. And then you come here, there's your delay, right? Reverse delay, why not? We're just making stuff up as we go. Reverb, another reverb, and there you go. You have a full-on pedal board with a pitch pedal, a phaser, a flanger, distortion, delay, and reverb. And it's all laid out for you. And then as you can see, let me turn all this stuff off real quick. And so as you can see, when you click on a pedal, then the controls become apparent to you here. So for example, this pitch whammy, you can mess with the position of the pitch whammy, right? So that you can affect where it is, just like with the regular whammy pedal. That's essentially the foot pedal, which can be hooked up to an expression pedal, of course. The heel pitch, the toe pitch, the mix, and the level. Really self-explanatory stuff. When your heel is down, what is the pitch? When your toe is down, what is the pitch? You can choose that. And then what's the mix between dry and wet, and then the level. You know, it works the same for all these pedals. Each individual pedal that you can choose from within each given category, they have different controls. So this script phase only has rate, mix, and level. This flanger is much more complex. You have rate, width, manual, all of this stuff. So as you can see, you can build an effects chain quite effectively with minimal effort without having to buy a boatload of pedals. Then there's some other cool stuff that you can do. You can send things into parallel. What that means is that rather than going this effect into this effect, into this effect, into this effect, into this effect, into this in a linear fashion, you can actually set it parallel. So what that means is that anything in parallel is going to affect your sound coming in equally and send it out equally, but they are not going to affect each other. So the way to do that is to, in parallel, pull this down, right? You see how I'm doing this? I'm creating that second effects loop. So now I have two linear things going on where I can have this being sent and bypassing all of this stuff. Right? Pretty cool. So the way this signal chain is now working and is illustrated to you is that the pitch pedal goes in, the input goes in and to the pitch pedal. Let's say it just changes everything up an octave. Then it will go to this modulation pedal here, which is a phaser, but it will also go to the flanger. And then you will have essentially two signals that aren't affecting each other, one with the octave up from the pitch pedal going into the phaser, and then the second one going into the flanger. So you will have a flanger and a phaser sounding at the same time next to each other, but not affecting each other. And then that flanger, in this case, will go all the way to the end and not be affected by anything up here. Right? And it will not be affected by anything up here. And so you will just get the flanger out, and then the phaser will go into this distortion, this delay, and this verb, and then to the out. Now you can see here, right? This is that secondary signal chain. You can move the position anywhere you want. So if I just want these two to be next to each other, the two modulation pedals, they can now be next to each other, not affecting each other, and then both of them will go into the distortion pedal. So let me go to a preset and show you what that can actually do. So you can see the functional effect it has. So right now, I have in this preset, I have a flanger here. You see that gray flanger and a phaser here, pan phaser. And so I'm just going to turn both of these on going into the distortion. So I've got flanger on and I've got phaser on going into distortion. Sounds pretty cool, but let's see what just the phaser sounds like going into the distortion. And now what the flanger sounds like going into distortion without the phaser. All pretty cool. So now let's put them into parallel. So right now, what I've done is I've put these two into parallel, but they're rejoining before they get to the distortion. So this is what the flanger and the phaser sound like at the same time, but not affecting each other. And now, just for reference, I'm going to put them back into series, and this is what they sound like affecting each other. And then out of phase again, or sorry, out of series again, in parallel. So you can hear that it's not necessarily better or worse, it's just different. But now, I'm going to make the flanger rejoin after the distortion and check out how different that is. So everything's on. Now everything's on. And listen to how it sounds. which is vastly different than this. So the parallelism, it can be very cool. I think where this can be most cool is in a harmony-based context. So let me show you something very, very interesting. I'm going to have two pedals here. I'm going to have a pitch whammy in first, and then I'm going to have harmony. All right? So for the pitch whammy, I'm just going to turn the octave down on. Okay? The octave down will be on, and that sounds like this. Then I'm going to set the pitch to concert B flat major, because this is going to be in a key. It's just going to be B flat major. The voice 1 shift, voice 1 meaning the first voice is going to be a third up, and then voice 2 is going to be in the same key, so A sharp, B flat major, and that's going to go up a sixth. So now, this is where things get very interesting, because here's just the harmony, right? And if you put on the octave before it, it's going to bring all of that pitch stuff down an octave, like this, because you will be bringing your signal an octave down with this pedal here, which will then, that octave down sound will feed into this pitch here, and it will just be a harmonized octave down like this. But look what happens when you put them in parallel. What should happen now is that you will have the harmony up top and then that bari sound on bottom, actually creating kind of a horn section. Pretty cool, right? So let's mess around with that and try and make it even slightly different. So now I'm going to make it a fourth down, or the fifth of the note that I'm playing, and I'm going to change the harmony. I'm not going to change the harmony. Let's hear how this sounds. So doing things in parallel can be really interesting, because now you can essentially have two pedal boards at the same time. Obviously, you can't have them, it won't let you do, you can see it won't let you put two pedals in the same slot in parallel, so you can still only have 8 different effects going at once, but you can have two 4 pedal boards in parallel. You can have two 4 pedal boards going on at the same time, not interacting with each other, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's really neat. And so yeah, the parallelism that can be achieved with this pedal are very unique, and doing that quickly and on the fly is very cool. There are a few other things to this pedal that are quite interesting. So let's say we go to something that I've already created. Right, here's that preset I showed you. So you can assign CC messages or PC messages to everything. So this means that MIDI can control stuff. And so let's say, for example, and this is a little high level, but bear with me. let's say you got this distortion pedal that I just turned on. You want to map your expression pedal to the gain knob. So you just right click and you hit expression pedal 1 if you have an expression pedal connected directly into the HX Stomp, and there you go. That's it. Now the expression pedal will control that gain knob. It's that simple. It makes the assignments of stuff so simple. So I can do it and say assign the bypass to whatever foot switch or expression pedal I want, or to any MIDI number that I want. You can see I've already assigned a couple of things. So this allows for any external control, whether it's MIDI control or whether it is through more analog inputs like an expression pedal or a switch pedal to go in, and you can just have all the fun in the world and very quickly and very simply make this pedal do what you want it to do. And as you can see, we haven't even figured out the slightest bit of the depth of this pedal, but there is an immense amount of stuff in here. Some of it's great, some of it's good, some of it's not that great. A lot of it is really fantastic. So, just to kind of give you a wrap-up of what this thing really is. You have your input. You can set various settings on your input. You have your output. You can set various settings on your output. And in between that, you can take any one of these 8 blank slots and fill it with one of hundreds of effects from almost every effect type that you can think of, including loopers, volume pedals, and more dynamics-based stuff like EQ pedals, and even comps and gates and swells. There's so much in this pedal, and it makes it so easily understood and so well laid out. I would pose that for anyone who is learning pedals and who is a little unnerved by buying a lot of stuff and just wants to figure out how this stuff works and the basic functionality and learning what the effects do and the effects that Signal Chain has, get this pedal. This is an amazing learning and teaching tool, because with this interface, you can create little worlds without going out and buying 100 different pedals and figuring stuff out. If you want to just learn the ergonomics and the logistics of pedals and effects, this is a great way to do it. Then figure out what you like and find the best version of that. This is the first of many episodes that we're going to do on the HX Stomp. Going forward, I'm going to be picking this pedal apart one by one and going through and showing all of the various sounds that you can get from these distortion modules, dynamics modules, etc. I'm going to go through every sound, every pedal, so you can get a full picture of what this can do for you and what this can sound like. It is an amazing pedal. It is a extremely thorough pedal, and it is amazing interface that is so easy to use, easy to control, and easy to design effects with. So for anyone who wants to get into pedals, who is new to it, the LINE6 HX Stomp is about as good as it can get. And for anyone who wants a lot of manipulability and a lot of various types of control and options for effects, this is a great pedal for you. So yeah, the HX Stomp by LINE6.